in here.
And the bass keeps running and running.
Hello and welcome into the fourth episode of the On the Farm podcast. I'm T.J. Mathewson, joined alongside the brains of this podcast, Jeremy Buch. And Jeremy, we're at the time of year which I qualify, at least being here in Arizona, best time of the year. Pitchers and catchers are reporting, which means we get to see all these prospects get out on the field. It's just great, isn't it?
It is awesome. We are also recording here on Valentine's Day, which is quite some time. But also, Shohei Ohtani had his first press conference today.
Yeah, a little bitter for me. It looked like they had about 100 reporters there watching him take batting practice, and I don't think he threw a bullpen today, did he?
No, he just played catch with his hit translator.
Yeah. Well, isn't that nice? You know, me being a Mariners fan, I don't have the utmost great feelings for Shohei Ohtani with his decision-making on where he decided to play baseball. But, you know, yeah, that's. I don't have a lot to say on Shohei Ohtani. I didn't see his press conference today. He was talking pretty much all in Japanese, so, and I take Spanish, so, yeah, that's how that went.
Just mostly the big points to take away from today is that the Angels do want to run a six-man rotation with him in that. And TJ and I were kind of talking about what that means in terms of where Ohtani plays, how often. With the six-man, I think they're just taking as much precaution with that elbow injury while still allowing him to fulfill both the pitching and hitting parts that he wants to do in Major League Baseball.
So, with the six-man rotation, when he gets his starts, do you think they're going to let him go more than 5 innings, or do you think they're going to restrict him?
I honestly think it just matters about Scioscia. I think Scioscia is going to be able to manage that. Obviously, he's dealt with guys like Garrett Richards is injured every year. So it's more, I feel like he can balance if someone's really struggling, or if he feels like Shohei's starting to lose it or whatever, he can step in. And I don't know. I don't think they give him an innings limit at first. I think they watch him, but I don't think there's just, he only pitches 5 if he's having a great outing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of batting-wise, you think he gets 3 or 4 days a week? 3 or 4 days a week at the plate?
I don't know where I see him in that sense. I don't know if he's hitting a certain amount of days. I don't know how many. But I think it just kind of depends on how he plays in spring training. Obviously, they're going to make him hit in spring training just to kind of see where he stands. I don't know how much that'll be, how often, but he definitely gets the shot to hit as well.
I think we'll probably. We don't think we'll see him in the field at all. I don't think so.
I'd be hard pressed to believe he's in the outfield or any field for that matter. He'll either DH or maybe pinch hit. I think that's the extreme, is just pinch hitting and then probably being pinch run for. We'll see, but I'm not 100% sure. It's going to be exciting to watch. Obviously, you'll have plenty of crowds at Tempe Diablo Stadium. Their Twitter's already blowing up. Everything's going crazy.
Oh, they're having a blast with that, with Shohei's name. Shohei's set, well, if he plays, of course. We don't know if he will play. We can't read inside the mind of Mike Scioscia, but Angels' first game against the Athletics in Mesa will be on a week from tomorrow. No, a week from Friday. Sorry. So it's going to be a good one. Getting to watch Shohei Ohtani. Now, we have another thing that we do want to talk about. Jeremy managed to find. Bleacher Report released an article with every MLB team's most overrated prospect. Well, I completely agree with their Mariners one because who is Dan Vogelback, who is not very good. I never thought he was very good whenever I've watched him in person. I thought he had a lot of promise when he came over from the Cubs, the Mike Montgomery trade. He's never panned out. He's supposed to be a hitter, but I've realized that he can't actually hit at the major league level from what I've seen, and now he just doesn't really have a position, and it is kind of frustrating. The Mariners wasted such good talent on that. But otherwise, Jeremy, what else do you see from this list?
So we're going to try to go division by division here, and TJ started off with the AL West there. So I will also go from the AL West, just one that I definitely think is a clear overrated prospect. That'd be with the Oakland A's and Richie Martin. Richie Martin was the 20th pick in the 2015 draft. He's 23 years old, and he was supposed to be one of the best defensive shortstops in his class out of Florida. So far, he cannot hit to follow up with that glove. He has a 235 average over 3 minor league seasons. He's managed just 9 home runs and over 1,000 plate appearances. I don't see him being that great, making an impact on that roster, especially with Jorge Mateo now on the team. He's just one of those guys where you thought his bat would catch up with his glove and never did. Now we're going to dip into the AL East, and one of my I don't understand why this man was drafted, signed, anything. Brian Johnson, he was a two-way star at Florida. Another Florida kid. I don't know what that trend is. But no, he had a good year in high A and double A in 2014. He went 13-3, 2.13 ERA, .97 whip, 132 strikeouts, and over 140 innings. And then his stuff just fell off in other seasons trying to make it to AAA. I mean, I know he had a few MLB starts, but I don't like him that much. I don't think he was that great. He was 31st in 2012, like 31st overall pick. And I don't understand it. He was an older player to start, and he never met that mid-rotation ceiling he had.
So I want to go to the Blue Jays prospect, Richard Urena. I can't pronounce to save my life. You want to save me there, Jeremy?
Richard Urena.
Okay. So Richard Urena, he's not been very good. Let's see. I'm trying to decipher this. He just hit 247 last year in Double A, over 550 plate appearances, which definitely not what you want to see from one of your top prospects. And it doesn't help that the Blue Jays' top 2 prospects in their organization are both infielders and are both absolute studs in Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. So he picked the wrong position, I feel like, to be in their system, and it's not helping his case.
I don't really think it's his choice to play shortstop in a certain organization, TJ.
Well, I'm just saying it's unfortunate that his struggles come while he's playing shortstop in an organization that's loaded in infield talent.
In Bichette and Guerrero,
yes.
Obviously. And then moving on to the AL Central, this one, I really looked at all these players, and I would say that 3 of them were genuine bad, overrated players. Outside of that, I'm going to go with the Twins and Zach Littell, a former Yankee, actually a former Mariner, I want to say. And he
Not
was
totally sure on that one.
He was brought over in multiple trades, and he was part of the Jaime Garcia trade, actually. And his 2017 numbers were 19-1, a 2.12 ERA, a 1.12 WHIP, 41 walks, 142 strikeouts, and over 150 innings, which makes him seem like, oh my God, an 11th round pick doing all this. He's basically a poor man's Alex Wood, and until Alex Wood hit the Dodgers and a few years with the Braves, he wasn't that studly. He wasn't a great pitcher. His ceiling's a 4-starter, and he doesn't have that ability to just throw high 90s fastballs and have this speed and this power to his pitches, but he seems to just kind of like paint the corners well, and of course in minor league pitching it's pretty easy to overwhelm some batters. So that's my pick.
So I'm going to stay in the AL Central. Carson Fulmer, a really recognizable name. Brother of Michael Fulmer, right?
No.
Related? No? They're not. Wow. Well, they do play in the same division, so you got that connection going for him. But after winning the Golden Spikes Award at Vanderbilt, right? Yep. Vanderbilt in 2015, where he went 14-2, 1.83 ERA, 167 strikeouts, and 127 innings. He struggled last year in AAA. A full season in AAA, he a 5.79 ERA and over 5 walks per 9 innings. I believe he did get some starts in the major leagues last year, but they weren't very good ones. And he didn't live up to his number 8 overall pick status.
All right, continuing on with these divisions, I'm going to go with the NL East, and I'm going to go to the Miami Marlins. What a franchise. The former number 2 overall pick in 2014, Tyler Kolek. This is his stat line, and this was just one game. 3 2/3 innings pitched, 14 walks, 4 hits, 3 hit by pitch, and 12 earned runs. I don't know how you managed to do that. I don't know how you managed to be a second overall pick doing that. Just a pitcher in general. He was a flame-throwing Texas high school was how they described him. And now he basically missed 2 full seasons from injuries. But, I mean, he's 22. I guess he can still improve, but his confidence just has to be shot. I don't know. I think he's one of the biggest busts I've ever seen.
So, listen, there's baseball is one of those sports that you literally cannot take time off of. If a major league hitter took an entire year off of playing baseball, you didn't take any batting practice or nothing, you'd come back and suck. It doesn't matter who it is. They would come back and they would struggle. And that is pretty representative of what we saw from Tyler Kolek. I don't know why he was in the game so long to walk those 14 guys, but it's development. And your development gets stopped, especially for 2 seasons. It's not going to help.
So what's your pick in the NL East here, TJ?
So my most overrated prospect, I'm going to go with JB Crawford because it seems like I said this on previous shows. He's been in the Phillies organization forever, and he's still not producing very well. He's going to have a starting spot on opening day, it sounds like, for the Phillies, which will be interesting to see. He can finally prove himself at the major league level. He hasn't proven it really at AAA. He hasn't proven it at major leagues. He's got to prove it to me. So that's my pick.
Moving on to the NL Central here, and a guy that I was able to watch in the Fall League, a guy that I really like. He is an awesome human being and really cares about everything, his teammates, a great clubhouse person. But the hitting ability of Corey Ray from the Brewers, he was out of Louisville at pick number 5 in 2016, and he went straight to single A. So the Brewers might have messed this up for him. But not starting him out at rookie level or even short season, they took him right straight to single A. He hit 239, just 20 extra base hits and 270 plate appearances. I mean, he did even receive a promotion that year, and he had an identical year this year, 238, 311, 367 slash line. And then he struck out 156 times to walking just 48. I think it was just him getting off track. The Brewers have a depth of outfield, and I think that his development was just stalled, and it was a poor way of developing such a great player. But that's my pick.
So I'm going to go with the Cubs going the north side of Chicago. Trevor Clifton. So usually with a 12th round pick, you're not expecting too high of expectations, but Clifton did set the bar pretty high in 2015. He went 7-7 with a 2.72 ERA, a 1.16 WHIP, and 129 strikeouts in 119 innings at high A for the Cubs in 2015. But then last year in Double A in 2017 season, it was not so stellar. He only recorded 7.7 strikeouts per 9. His ERA went to 5.2. And his hits ballooned to 10 hits per 9 innings, which is not good. So, like I just said at the beginning of this segment, like being a 12th round pick, your expectations aren't that high. But when you set the bar high, and then you don't follow it up with another good performance at the next level, you're gonna appear in this list.
And then finishing up our little, rankings here. Moving on to the NL West. And this was tough because the guys listed for both the Dodgers and the Giants, they're both pitchers. They're both right-handers. I felt like both of them were not great, but I'm going to have to go with Tyler Beede just on the fact that there's a certain prowess when you draft a player from Vanderbilt, especially a pitcher. Just the idea that he has this electrifying presence on the mound. I mean, Sonny Gray, Vanderbilt. David Price, Vanderbilt, just guys that have proven themselves in the majors. And Beede is 24. He disappointed at AAA. I mean, his ERA went from a 2.81 the year before to a 4.79. His WHIP went from a 1.28 to a 1.47, and his strikeout rate went down by almost 2 points. I mean, he was supposed to be a top-flight rotation guy, and now he's looking more like a backer rotation, maybe even bullpen at this point. So Tyler Beede is my most overrated prospect.
I wouldn't say I have a definitive most overrated prospect here, but I'm going to talk about one I'm familiar with. I got to see him play a couple times, and that would be Josh Naylor, a first baseman for the San Diego Padres. I got to see him play for the Pura Javelinas in the Arizona Fall League, where he did decently. I saw him hit a grand slam. He did crush that ball. It was pretty good. He last year he hit 280, 346, 415, 25 doubles, 10 home runs, 64 RBIs. That line on the outside looks good, but when you look at Josh Naylor, you'd expect him to have more than 35 extra base hits over a full season. He is only 20, as they mentioned. He's still got time to unlock his power potential, but right now he is not unlocking his full potential and probably should be doing better than he did.
All right, and that'll wrap it up for the most overrated prospects by division. Now we're going to go into a little rumor that was placed earlier this week. The Astros are interested in acquiring JT Realmuto, the catcher from the Miami Marlins. The Marlins, in a smart move for once, are coveting Kyle Tucker, the outfielder from the Astros. And, I mean, you kind of want to get a good, controllable young player for another good, controllable young player. Kyle Tucker is an outfielder, not like the Marlins need anymore, but that is the top number one prospect for the Astros before this new ranking comes out next week, so we'll roll with that. If I'm them, I'm looking for Kyle Tucker plus probably one or two other players, or Forrest Whitley plus one or two other players. I don't settle kind of like the Pirates did with getting Colin Moran and Jason Martin, and I didn't like that. I thought they could have gotten a lot more, and they didn't. So this is a time for the Marlins to capitalize. It's our last big piece. TJ, any thoughts?
Well, if I'm the Marlins, we know they're in desperate need of pitching, so that's why I think Forrest Whitley would be another one. They already have Monte Harrison and Lewis Brinson as outfield prospects. Got them both from the Brewers. Both are top tier prospects. So that's what you want to see. You don't need another. I don't think you need another outfielder. We saw how the three elite outfielders worked for the Marlins last time when their pitching eventually brought them down. That's why I think trying to get Forrest Whitley, maybe another pitching prospect, or maybe a catching prospect to fill the whole field by JT Realmuto would be a fair trade for the Marlins.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. Moving on now to our next talking point here. There were 4 minor league players officially suspended. One of those being Rays catching prospect Nick Ciofo. And he was the 27th prospect on the last top 30 list, the 21st overall pick in 2013 by them. He had a solid year, but a lot of these guys, there's 3 others. Phillies right-handed pitcher Chris Geltz, Padres right-handed pitcher Alex Cunningham, and actually a guy who was out here in the Fall League, Pirates second baseman Mitchell Tolman. And it was 50 games for drug of abuse for Tolman. Cunningham got 50 games for methamphetamines. And then Geltz got 100 games no pay after testing positive for the 3rd time in his career for marijuana. So that was rough. And then a little tidbit, but going on, we have the MLB Farm System rankings by Bleacher Report for the 2018 Spring Training Edition. We're just going to see if any of these farm systems kind of got, I guess, a little generous ranking or a little bit undersold.
So I'm gonna go right off the bat. I was surprised how high the Angels system was ranked, because at the end they noted in this article at the end of the 2017 season, the Angels were dead last in prospect rankings, and I don't believe Shohei Ohtani is worth to jump up 11 spots in this ranking. So I'm interested to see how this will go throughout the whole season, because by the end of the season, Shohei Ohtani will not be a prospect any longer. So that's what stuck out to me immediately. Of course, I was looking at the top, and the Braves, the Yankees, the White Sox. I'm incredibly jealous of their farm systems. So many top-tier guys in those farm systems. I was surprised that the Mariners actually made it all the way up to 26, having only 2 Tier 1 guys in Kyle Lewis, Evan White. Both are very injury-prone. Jeremy mentioned this to me before the podcast. We both agree that Sam Carlson, who they got in the 2nd round last year, is also a Tier 1 guy. But since the fact he's just fresh out of high school, he's just a Tier 2 guy. But he'll get to Tier. I think, honestly, if he has a full season, full, good, healthy season, he'll be at Tier 1 by the end.
So the one that really surprised me was the Cleveland Indians. While they contend on the field almost every year, their farm system, I would say, is one of the deeper. I don't think they're a top 10, but to be at 24 and have the Orioles and the Angels and the Marlins ahead of you, I think that's a little bit of a short change on their farm system. Obviously, Mejia is going to graduate this year out of the prospect title. But Tristan McKenzie's still there. Bobby Bradley's still a very, very good first baseman. They got some younger pitching, a few utility guys in the infield. It's not great, but it's not 24 bad. And that was one that really threw me for a loop. Outside of that, I mean, it was a fairly solid ranking overall. I didn't really see anybody that really got shortchanged. I do think it's not as much a hate or a like on this, but just the idea of the Detroit Tigers being almost dead center of the farm system is baseball. 15, they got 4 Tier 1 prospects. Actually, all of them are pitchers, and I find that kind of funny. They got Franklin Perez out of the Verlander deal as their number 1 prospect. Matt Manning, who was their draft pick in 2017. Bo Burrows, who was also a first-round pick in 2015. And then Alex Faedo. Sorry. Matt Manning in 2016, Faedo in 2017, and then Daz Cameron is their Tier 2. I mean, it's a great farm system. I guess they can move up 1 or 2 spots, but at the end of the day, it was a good ranking. Overall, Bleacher Report did a good job, but MLB Pipelines comes out next week, and we will obviously break that down as it comes.
You know, maybe the one that surprised me the most, which honestly, if you think about it, shouldn't be that surprising, but the Cubs are ranked 27th. Now, this is a team 2 years ago which had arguably the number 1 farm system in baseball and won 97 games. So, and according to Bleacher Report's rankings, they do not have a Tier 1 prospect, period. They traded away Eloy Jimenez. They traded away Gleyber Torres. They promoted Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo way back, Addison Russell, Kyle Schwarber. Man, I'm forgetting people. But, you know, like they've promoted a lot of people, but it's also surprising that the depth that they had is just, it seems gone.
Well, I guess to answer your point or I guess question here, a lot of their pitching, they're solid contributors. None of them are top flight, like day 1 starters. I don't see them being 1 or 2 starters in their organization unless they're that bad. But Ian Happ graduated this year. I mean, he's a very, very serviceable player, and I don't. Victor Caratini's close to that point. He's a 24-year-old catcher who was in AAA and then the majors later. I really think that Theo Epstein is, obviously they won a World Series out of it, but still kicking himself for trading Gleyber Torres, because Gleyber Torres on this team instead of Addison Russell, I think they're a lot better. I don't like Addison Russell as much. I think that this team gave up a lot to win at that point. And obviously, there's nothing against them. They won. I can't say that it's a bad decision, but it is definitely a decision that's going to affect their future. And them being at 27 doesn't surprise me all that much because you're having later draft picks. The international market has kind of more been geared towards teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees and even the Rangers at this point. Just a lot of teams, the Padres, that you wouldn't expect the Mariners to just get a lot of international talent. They're missing out on a lot of guys, a lot of draft picks, and I think that their system's finally just depleted. And then the high school preseason All-American teams came out, and actually, believe it or not, we probably have a few guys on this list that are also in the top 10 high school draft prospects. One of those, well, 2 of those being Arizona kids. We talked about them briefly last week. Nolan Gorman, the third baseman out of Sandra Day O'Connor, and Matthew Libator out of Mountain Ridge High School. Both of these players are committed to the University of Arizona. I don't think they attend. They are going to be really, really good MLB players. I don't know when. I think it's going to take some time to develop, but they will be amazing. Ethan Hawkins is a 6'6" right-handed pitcher out of Georgia. He's committed to Vanderbilt. I think that he also forgoes his Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt commitment. And he will just go straight into the MLB. A few other guys to touch on. Tristan Casas, a first baseman out of American Heritage in Florida. Bryce Terang out of Santiago High School in Corona, California. He is going to be very, very, very fun to watch. And then Nander de Sedas out of Monteverde in Florida. That's also where Francisco Lindor went to high school. He projects to be kind of like that Lindor Correa type of player where he's dynamic. And that's just quickly touching on those guys. Something kind of interesting that happened. The MLB reached out to Andre Dawson about changing the Urban Invitational, which is an annual tournament that showcases historically black college and university teams. So people that wouldn't normally get like a shot in the College World Series, they kind of have this nice little classic to get everybody noticed and recognized. They renamed it the Andre Dawson Classic. And this is something that has been around for a long time. And he's actually one of two players who are in the Hall of Fame that were also alumni from historically black colleges and universities, or HBCUs as they're called. And I mean, it's a great program. Alcorn State is a team that's in there a lot. Southern, Grambling State, Alabama State, just some schools that are not as recognized in the general baseball sense, but still, because of this program, and this great program for that matter, they're able to be recognized. And actually, Curtis Granderson is a player that used to do it, and he will also be a special appearance guy this year in the 11th year of the tournament. It's awesome. It really is. Moving on to some international news. Julio Pablo Martinez is a 21-year-old center fielder who has been a really good young player in Cuba. He's looking to defect, and the three teams interested are the Yankees and the Rangers, which really shouldn't surprise that many people. But the Marlins are also on the top three there, and that's kind of, I guess, a sigh of relief. Not really, but it's a nice future for the Marlins that they can still contend for pretty good prospects in that sense. Like, they still have a shot.
Well, here's the thing. So we know that Miami has a big Cuban culture, right? So I think that would make Julio Pablo Martinez's transition to America much better than if you were to go to New York or go to Texas or Arlington, wherever. Also, as you mentioned, the Marlins need top-tier prospects. Like, I know they've gotten some in trades back for Yelich, Ozuna, and Stanton, but they need to keep adding and keep stocking up. And we've seen these Cuban guys that come over and defect have been pretty solid. So, honestly, I think it'd be good for Derek Jeter and the Marlins to get this big free agent signing.
And just to add on to that, the Marlins, I have not counted them out of, like, people are writing off Derek Jeter's an awful GM. Oh, he traded away all their core. Yeah, maybe some people would keep that core of D. Gordon and Yelich and Stanton and Ozuna. I mean, you can contend. I don't think you win a World Series because you don't have the money to pay for pitching in that payroll market. But I think the idea of, I mean, he really tore it down. But the future it's going to take at least 4 years for them to start doing any kind of contention. But if you look at the Twins were bad just before the 2010 season, and now they're playoff contenders. So it's one of those things where, yeah, it's going to take some time, just trust in the team, trust in the ownership, and I think that this team will surprise people in 3 to 4 years.
Just got to trust the process.
Trust the process. And that's all for today.
Yeah, so for myself, T.J. Mathewson, and Jeremy Buch, this is On the Farm Podcast, episode number 4. Be sure to tune in probably next Wednesday when we release our next episode, top 30s and more. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next time.
Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.